Hello and welcome to the Buddha Brunch. My name is Ned Kelly. Today we're going to talk about some of the seeming contradictions, the contrasts, the do's and don'ts that might apparently get in the way, or do they? We'll see, with a fellow meditator and internet provider of material, Joelle Anderson. Joelle, thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really exciting to be on.
You can find Joelle's stuff on YouTube and on her website, kernelofwisdom.com, and the Facebook page as well, Kernel of Wisdom. Tons and tons of great, helpful material, mostly in video form.
I do actually offer the guided meditations kind of on a yearly basis through iTunes as a podcast as well, so people can just download them there. Instagram as well. And actually, if people use Insight Timer as a meditation timer, then the meditations are often uploaded there as well.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're going to talk about those seeming contradictions and some of Joelle's recent material. But first, I have to ask you, on your website, kernelofwisdom.com, in the description, there's a part that says, this is like masturbation for the soul.
I knew that was coming.
I've never seen it described that way before. Meditation in general is like that, or your particular website and what you offer?
I think the programs and my approach to teaching my hope is that it results in that. That's the intention anyway. And just that idea of just kind of pure orgasmic joy, but coming less in a physical sense and more kind of from within, just being that satisfied and happy, but with self versus a physical pleasure.
Very cool, very freeing. Let us talk a little bit about your background. How did you discover mindfulness practice?
In university, because I was all over the place. And so I had just gone through a breakup. I was like trying to finish teacher's college and another degree at the same time. So I was looking for just something to help me deal with all the stuff I was feeling. A friend recommended that I start reading into some Buddhist texts and philosophy. And as I did, I was ever more just inspired and impressed, and meditation was obviously a big part of that. A challenge with some of the more kind of like traditional, sometimes Buddhist style meditations, things like Zen, they can be tricky to catch on to at first, especially from when you live in the West and from a culture where you're not immersed in that way of thinking. It's hard to really understand what you're supposed to be doing, but mindfulness is being taught in such a like practical, straightforward way that I just kind of fell in love with it.
And do you sit with a meditation group or a sangha?
I'm super lucky because Toronto is actually a big center for meditation and it's continuing to grow. So there is a group called Meditation Toronto that I will sit with sometimes. But to be honest, I'm a very introverted person. And so as much as I really think there's huge benefits in group meditation, because I run groups and meditate, like I'm meditating with my clients when they're meditating, like I'm meditating on their meditations almost. And so do a lot of meditating around other people already. And so a lot of my practice I do by myself.
Do you consider yourself a Buddhist?
I wouldn't say I'm a Buddhist per se. I say I'm like a Buddhist appreciator. Largely Buddhist informed, but there's parts of like yoga and kind of Hindu tradition that work in. I was raised Catholic when I was a kid, so there's even parts of Christianity and Catholicism that kind of weave its way in. There's so much in terms of growth of Islam. There's like Islamic parts that have been really beautiful and inspiring. So I think it's, and even this kind of like new age, like energy work type stuff that works its way in. And I tend to be pretty secular in how I teach and I approach the practice, but inspiration and information from all of those sources.
Wonderful. Yeah, Buddhism, you're right, doesn't emphasize the doctrinal or, here's the classification that we are. So it's kind of ironic. That's the topic for today, the irony or the contrast. A recent video you did, not to meditate, to relax.
One of the challenges I find about being a mindfulness or meditation teacher, especially in like a Western culture, is we're so goal oriented. Like so much of us have so much purpose and reason behind the reasons that we do things. And we really know what we don't want. And for a lot of people these days, it's like we don't want to be so stressed out. Like we know we're stressed out and we know we don't like it. And we go with what we know, which is perfect. That's exactly what people do. But I think it can be a bit tricky because meditation is not inherently relaxing. And I think that's a big misperception that's out there. Like, I think people hear that people, or even see people who started a meditation practice and seem more relaxed.
Mm.
But I would argue it's almost more of a byproduct of what the actual intention is. So while it may be an outcome in a list of outcomes that you get from meditation, we're not striving to relax within meditation. And so if you approach the practice with a striving to become more relaxed, you're going to become really not relaxed.
Yes.
And that's the trick of it, is like anything you resist persists. Anything you strive for is going to push back, because it's trying to teach you those lessons. Like the universe, or whatever you want to call it, is trying to teach you, your practice is trying to teach you those lessons. And so if you're someone who strives, that's why you're not relaxed. And so if you strive for relaxation, you're trying to get a new outcome by doing the exact same behavior you've always done. And I think that's Einstein's definition of insanity. It just doesn't work.
Yes.
And so what meditation is actually trying to encourage people to do is to shift into just being present, to leave the striving behind, to leave the actual patterns of behavior behind, and just be. Just to experiment with what it means to just be, and even if we're capable of just being, or what gets in the way of our just being.
And that is one of the most common beginner thoughts. You know, when I sit and meditate, I can't stop thinking. I have all these thoughts in my head. Well, that is not necessarily what you're going for, to stop thinking.
I hear it all the time. Like, any student I come, like, I can't stop thinking, I can't stop thinking, I can't stop thinking. And when they finally have someone tell them, like, you're not supposed to stop thinking, they're like, oh. And it's such a beautiful moment for people, because it's like, then what am I supposed to be doing? And there's an openness there. And that's often actually a great place to get to, because then it opens up this conversation to me. And what I think there's a real distinction between setting an intention and having a goal.
Perfect.
And an intention has no attachment to whatever the outcome is. It's like, it's a hope, it's a wish for yourself, that guides you in a particular direction. It's literally about just pointing yourself in a way you might like to go, without having like an outcome and then trying to fill in the space in between, which becomes really stressful. It becomes like, it is filled with things like striving and suffering, because I can't see how I'm going to get there. There's no steps in between. It's just this like scrounging to get to this like place that seems so distant sometimes.
And that idea of allowing thinking is so hard. It's so hard to grasp.
Talking about contradictions, like, I have so much respect for other teachers, and I've learned so much from other teachers, and I'm so grateful for my own teachers and everybody who's talking about this, because I think it takes a village to raise a meditator. Because, like, honestly, it's an experiential practice. You really need to work through and experience and struggle with before you get it.
Yeah.
And it is stuff like focus on the breath. The number of people who are like, focus on the breath, and then they start to find out it's about presence and all this, and it's like, I thought it was about focusing on my breath. It's like, no, that's a tool. These are all tools to get at the same idea. And it's an idea that it's not possible to really fully explain. You have to experience it.
Yes, and that's that delicious contradiction. You might pick up the practice of meditation for one particular reason. I want to become that enlightened person. I want to become that peaceful person, or I want stress relief. Whatever that first initial reason you begin the practice may be very different from what the practitioner finds ultimately why they're doing it.
Yeah. And then it's ironic, because the second you let go of those original intentions and start to just allow it to become a dynamic process, where the process shapes you as much as you shape your process, once you kind of get to that place where you've let go of, like, okay, well, let's not worry about relaxation, you become relaxed.
You know the story of the student asking his teacher, how long will it take me if I practice every day and meditate 5 hours every day? How long it would be before I reach enlightenment? And the teacher says 20 years. Well, how about if I practice 10 hours every, and keeps getting bigger, more practice, and each time the teacher says a longer, well, then it'll take you 30 years. Well, then it'll take you 40 years. I'll meditate, I'll fast, and well, in that case, you'll never reach enlightenment. And the student is confounded. Well, why? And the teacher says, well, the more energy and effort you're putting into this struggle, into this trying, the more it will elude you. The less you try, the more you simply be the practice, it'll simply appear.
Yeah, I love that. It's sure you get that sense of like just being in that hamster wheel, and you're like, you know how frustrating that is, but you got to just step off. Just step off. It's
Step.
like it's literally that easy and simultaneously that difficult all at the same time.
Yeah. Well, I love the image of the hamster wheel. Now we're coming to the point where I ask, are there any further thoughts, anything else that came to mind in your heart?
In my heart, the biggest message I always want to just bring to people is just try it and be patient with yourself and try it multiple times and in multiple ways. And if you don't get it at first, you're not supposed to get it at first.
Mm,
So keep finding different teachers, keep finding different ideas, like allow that itch to guide you. And you might even read something from, I don't know, a physics textbook, and it's what is the thing that like clicks in about what you're supposed to learn. Just that every single thing we do in life is an opportunity to learn about how we think, how we are, and how we be in this world and how we relate to the world around us. And that is the practice essentially. So allow this world to be your playground. Learn from every teacher you can without striving to learn from them. Just be open. And I hope more and more people keep picking up this practice, because I think it makes for a beautiful, compassionate world. And I just hope we can all live more like that.
wonderful. Well, thank you, Joelle Anderson, kernelofwisdom.com, Kernel of Wisdom on Facebook. I'm looking forward to those upcoming videos about thoughts and all the work that you do. Thank you so much. Thank you for being on the Buddha Brunch show today. If you have liked this program, you can go to Buddha Brunch on Facebook and like that. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is Ned Kelly Video. And of course, you can go to patreon.com/Ned Kelly and co-create with me there. Offer a pledge of $1 or more per video. It is a great way to support these works that we're doing together here. Well, one more time, Joelle, thank you so much. Namaste and blessings.
Thank you, Ned. I'm so honored to be on here. Namaste.